The visual evidence, pay close attention to the freeze frame on your screen right now. This image comes from a videographer's raw file, dated November 14th, 2023. You are looking at the inside of a private banquet hall in Clearwater, Florida. The room is set for a massive celebration: white linens, gold Chiavari chairs, floral centerpieces, but look at the tables in the background. Most of them are empty. There are only a handful of people scattered in the distance, few witnesses, perhaps staff or distant acquaintances sitting in a room meant for hundreds. In the center of the frame, surrounded by that hollow space, you see a man in a wheelchair. This is Arthur Sterling. He is 84 years old, a logistics tycoon worth an estimated $12 million. Bending down to kiss him is Elena. She is 21 years old, wearing a white bridal gown. This kiss, captured at 2:14 p.m., seals a legal union that will become the center of a double homicide investigation. To the outside world, and certainly to Arthur's family, this image looks like a crime in progress. A young, beautiful woman taking advantage of a frail, wealthy old man. A predator securing the bag in front of a few paid witnesses. That is exactly what Arthur's daughters, Diane and Sarah, screamed when they first saw this footage weeks later. But they were looking at it through the lens of their own greed. If you look closer at the footage, you see the truth. Arthur is holding her face. He is leaning into the kiss. He is not a victim here. He is a man who has just made the only strategic move left available to him to protect the only person who saved him from dying alone. To understand why this wedding happened with barely anyone watching, you have to understand the silence that preceded it. Arthur Sterling was not a gentleman in his prime. He built Sterling Logistics in the 1980s with a philosophy of profit over presence. He was efficient, ruthless, and incredibly successful. Therefore, he was rarely home. He provided for his two daughters, Diane 52 and Sarah 49, financially buying them cars, funding their divorces, paying for their lifestyles, but he starved them emotionally. When his wife died in 2015, Arthur was left alone in a 6,000 square foot mansion. He assumed his daughters would step in. It was wrong. The security logs from his gated community tell a brutal, quantifiable story of abandonment. In the year 2022, the logs show Diane's vehicle entering the gate exactly 2 times, once for his birthday and once to pick up a check. Sarah's vehicle entered 0 times. They had the code to his gate. They had the key to his house, but they did not have the time. Therefore, Arthur sat alone in a house worth $4 million, staring at walls filled with photos of a family that effectively no longer existed. He was a checkbook to them, not a father, and as long as the wires cleared, they didn't need to see his face. In January 2023, the silence nearly killed him. Arthur suffered a fall in his master bathroom. He lay on the tile for 6 hours, unable to reach the phone, waiting for a gardener to spot him through the window. He realized then that he could die, decompose, and vanish, and his daughters wouldn't know until the bank notified them of a mistransfer. Therefore, he hired a live-in companion. The agency sent Elena. She was 20 years old then, an immigrant on a student visa, studying nursing at the local college. She was sending money back to her parents in Belarus. She needed the tuition money. Arthur needed a pulse in the house. It began as a transaction. But watch the interior security. Footage from the Sterling living room dated March 2023. This is 3 months after Elena moved in. You see them sitting at the mahogany dining table. They are not eating. They are playing chess. Arthur is teaching her. Is animated, pointing at the board, laughing when she makes a mistake. For the first time in 8 years, the house has noise. Over the next 6 months, the dynamic shifted. Elena didn't just cook his meals. She ate with him. She listened to his stories about the trucking industry in the 80s. She drove him to the beach just to watch the sunset. She gave him the one thing his millions could not buy and his daughters refused to give. She gave him attention. The calculation: by August 2023, Arthur knew his time was limited. He also knew his daughters. He knew that the moment he flatlined, Diane and Sarah would descend on the house like vultures. He knew they would evict Elena immediately, stripping her of her home and her ability to finish school. He knew they would erase her existence. Therefore, Arthur made a calculation. On November 1st, he consulted his attorney. He asked how to ensure Elena kept the house and enough money to survive. The lawyer was blunt. "Arthur, a will is just a piece of paper. Your daughters will contest it. They will claim undue influence. They will drag this girl through probate court for 5 years until she is bankrupt. The only way to give her standing that supersedes blood is marriage. Under Florida law, a spouse is protected. A spouse gets the house. A spouse gets the elective share of 30% immediately, regardless of what the will says. Marriage wasn't just a romantic gesture. It was a legal fortress. Arthur proposed on November 10th. He was brutal with the facts. It told Elena, "I am going to die soon. When I do, they will destroy you. Marry me, and you will be safe." Elena refused at first, fearing exactly what the world would say that she was using him. Arthur told her, "Let them think what they want. They aren't here. You are." He looks happy in the wedding photo because he believes he has won. He believes he has outsmarted his greedy children. He believes this piece of paper will keep Elena safe. But he made one critical error. He underestimated how far Diane and Sarah would go when they realized $12 million was slipping through their fingers. He thought the marriage would stop them. In reality, it just gave them a deadline. Arthur Sterling thought he had kept his marriage a secret, but in the digital age, privacy is an illusion. He didn't tell his daughters, but the Pinellas County Clerk's database is public record, and Diane Sterling, the daughter, who visited twice in a year, had a Google alert set up for her father's name. Not because she cared about his health, but because she was paranoid about his assets. On December 2nd, 2023, at 8:42 a.m., the alert triggered on Diane's phone. New public record, marriage license issued to Arthur Sterling and Elena Petrov. Diane called Sarah immediately. The phone records show a 42-minute conversation. They didn't call their father to congratulate him. They didn't call to ask who Elena was. They called a forensic accountant. They realized instantly that their inheritance, the $12 million they had mentally spent years ago, was in jeopardy. If Elena was his legal wife, she controlled the medical decisions. She controlled the house, and legally, she now owned a massive piece of the estate. Therefore, Diane and Sarah decided they had to act fast. They couldn't just challenge the marriage in court. That would take too long. They needed to invalidate it. They needed to prove that Arthur was incompetent, that he was manipulated, that he had lost his mind. They needed to separate him from her immediately. Pay attention to the Ness security camera mounted in the corner of the Sterling kitchen. The time stump is December 4th, 2023, 9:12 a.m. Arthur and Elena are sitting at the breakfast table. The mood is calm. Elena is pouring coffee. Suddenly, the front door off-camera slams open. The daughters didn't knock. They used the emergency key Arthur gave them 10 years ago. Diane and Sarah enter the frame. Sarah is holding her phone up, recording horizontally. She is shouting before she even stops moving. She is yelling about elder abuse, about predatory behavior. She is creating content for a courtroom. Diane slams a folder onto the table. "You signed a marriage license." She screams. "You think we wouldn't find out?" Watch Arthur's reaction. A man of 84, frail, leaning on a cane, usually avoids conflict. But not today. At the 9:14 a.m. mark, Arthur slams his hand on the table. The audio captures his voice clearly. He does not sound senile. He does not sound confused. He sounds like the CEO who crushed competitors in the 1980s. "I signed it because she is the only person in this room who knows how I take my coffee," he says. "You didn't come when I fell. You didn't come for Thanksgiving. You came for the money. Get out of my house!" Diane tries to pivot. She looks at Elena with pure venom. "How much?" "Say, Isaacis. How much to annul it and leave right now? We'll write the check." Elena doesn't speak. She looks at Arthur. Arthur points his cane at the door. "If you are not gone in 2 minutes, I am calling the police and I am pressing charges for trespassing." The daughters freeze. They look at each other. They realize 2 things instantly. 1. Arthur is completely lucid. He cannot be declared incompetent. 2. The marriage is legal. If he dies tomorrow, Elena gets 30% of the estate minimum, plus the house. The math has shifted against them. They irretriate. Sarah lowers her phone. They walk out the dashboard confession, but the story doesn't end in the driveway. It begins there. Switch to the dashboard camera inside Diane's Mercedes. They get into the car, but they don't drive away immediately. The engine idles. The audio is recording. This conversation is the pivot point from greed to crime. "He's sharp," Sarah says. "The competency hearing will fail. The doctors will clear him." Diane hits the steering wheel. "If we wait, he dies. And she gets everything. If we fight it in court, we lose." There is a long silence. Then Sarah speaks, her voice lower. "The marriage is only a problem if she is around to inherit. If she isn't..." The will reverts to the 2015 draft. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying we don't need to fight Dad," Sarah says. "We need to fix the Elena problem. They drive away at 9:22 a.m. They do not go home. They drive to a law office in downtown Tampa. Not to hire a lawyer, but to meet a consultant Diane has used for corporate liability issues in the past, a man named Marcus Vance. Vance is a fixer. He specializes in making problems disappear for high-net-worth clients. The first attempt on December 6th, 2 days after the confrontation, a gray sedan parks across the street from the Sterling mansion. The driver is not a neighbor. He is watching the house. He is learning the schedule. He notes that every Tuesday and Thursday evening at 7 p.m., Elena leaves the house for exactly 90 minutes to attend her night nursing class at the local college. She drives a 2018 Honda Civic. The route takes her through a stretch of unlit industrial road near the campus. Inside the house, Arthur feels safe. He tells Elena, "See, he gave up. We won." He believes he scared them off with the threat of police. He believes the legal wall held his wrong. They didn't give up. They just realized that fighting the marriage was a losing battle. So they decided to remove the bride. The trap is set for the following Thursday. The daughters are at a charity gala in Orlando, creating a perfect public alibi with hundreds of witnesses. They are smiling for photos, checking their watches, waiting for a text message that confirms the Elena problem has been solved. But the security cameras at the house are about to capture a variable they did not account for. A variable that will turn a hit and run into a home invasion. Pay attention to the exterior. Camera 3:12 a.m. The intruder implements Plan B, cutting the lanai screen to stage a burglary. Arthur wakes up and confronts him to protect his wife. But the stress triggers a massive cardiac arrest. Arthur dies on the hallway floor. The daughters believe their problem is solved, but they are wrong. 4 days later, the lawyer explains the reality. Because of the marriage certificate, Elena is automatically entitled to the mansion and 30% of the liquid assets. Arthur's death didn't save their inheritance. It locked it in, therefore. Diane and Sarah make one final cold calculation. If Elena dies before the probate transfer clears in 60 days, the money reverts to them. They hire the fixer to cut the brake lines on Elena's Honda Civic. On January 3rd, Elena drives toward the high bridge to sign the final papers. She never arrives, but the crash wasn't ruled an accident. Mechanics found the cut lines, and police traced the payments back to the daughters. They wanted to accelerate their inheritance, but they only accelerated their own erasure. Today, they sit in prison, while the $12 million estate they killed for now funds a nursing scholarship in Elena's name.